Awaken your spirit, chosen one. You were never meant to fit in, because you were born to stand out, not with noise, but with undeniable presence. You walk differently now. You move in silence, but your spirit roars like thunder through every room you enter. You've become still as a mountain and yet as fierce as fire. And that energy, that calm, unshakable power within you, it's not just noticed, it's feared. They can't put it into words, but they feel it. Your independence, your detachment, your refusal to be controlled. It threatens the very foundations they built their false sense of power on. You've heard the whispers. You've changed. You're different. But they don't understand what it took to become this version of you. They didn't witness the isolation, the breaking, the rebuilding. They don't know what it feels like to die to your old self and be reborn in silence, in fire, in faith. You're not just different, you're dangerous. Not because you harm, but because you heal. Not because you control, but because you can't be controlled. See, the world isn't used to souls like yours, souls that don't seek validation, that don't crave approval, that don't bend to be accepted. They don't understand that you've already faced the storms. You've already buried the old self. And now you walk in the strength that comes only from surviving spiritual war. You're not afraid to be alone anymore. You're not begging to be seen. You've found home within yourself, and that's what makes you untouchable. And this, chosen one, is what they find intimidating. Your fearlessness isn't loud, it's sacred. Your independence isn't rebellion, it's revelation. You no longer play by their rules, because your soul listens only to divine instruction. And if the world truly understood how powerful that makes you, they'd try to keep you small, boxed in, chained to a system that can't handle a soul that answers only to God. That's why your rise has been slow, hidden, protected. Because your light had to be forged in silence so it couldn't be dimmed by noise. Because if they saw your full glow before you were ready, they would have tried to extinguish it out of fear, not understanding. The divine didn't hide you to punish you. You were hidden because diamonds don't belong in plain sight while they're being formed. You were separated, not to be forgotten, but to be transformed. You were broken apart, not to be destroyed, but to be rebuilt in the image of truth, not tradition. Chosen one, you are the quiet storm they didn't see coming. You are the answered prayer someone tried to bury. You are the lion that walked away from the circus and found freedom in the wild. And now, you're stepping into territory where only the fearless can walk. You're becoming unshakable. You're becoming fully you. And that is why they're uncomfortable, because your presence exposes their chains. Your silence reveals their noise. Your clarity disrupts their illusion. You are not here to please. You are not here to follow. You are here to lead, heal, and liberate, even if it makes people uncomfortable. Especially if it makes people uncomfortable. So let them stare. Let them whisper. Let them wonder. You're not becoming dangerous because of pride. You're becoming dangerous because of purpose. And purpose is something no one can strip from you once it's rooted in truth. Chosen one, if this message stirred something deep within your soul, if you felt seen, if you felt reminded of who you are beneath the layers of silence and solitude, then like this video, subscribe, and comment below with "I walk in divine power" to join this sacred journey of awakening. This is your time. Walk boldly, speak softly, and let your energy speak the rest. Chosen one, you didn't come here to blend in. You didn't come here to walk the paved road, to echo empty voices, or to live in fear of what others might think of your light. You came here with something ancient in your bones, something eternal. You came here not to follow the world, but to awaken it. There's a quiet storm inside you. It's been brewing beneath the surface for years, maybe even lifetimes, and now the wind is shifting, the fire is rising, and you can feel it, that holy unrest, that inner knowing. That sacred rebellion that refuses to shrink just to make others comfortable. People look at you differently now, don't they? Not because you changed suddenly, but because you remembered. You remembered who you were before the world told you who to be. You remembered the strength that doesn't come from noise or titles, but from walking through fire and still choosing love. You remembered the power of silence, the wisdom of solitude, and the truth that doesn't beg to be believed. It just is. And the more you remember, the more dangerous you become. Not in a way that wounds, but in a way that wakes. Your independence becomes a mirror. Your presence becomes a confrontation. Because in a world built on fear and control, someone who doesn't need approval is the most terrifying thing they've ever seen. You don't move the way you used to. You don't explain yourself the way you once did. You're no longer chasing validation or asking for permission to exist. And that shift, it's magnetic, it's electric, it's divine. It's not arrogance, it's alignment. It's not rebellion, it's remembrance. Your independence is not just a choice, it's a calling. It's the evidence that you've healed in places they didn't even know were broken. You no longer seek from others what you've found within. You've discovered a deeper, a source that can't be touched by manipulation, shame, or rejection. You've become the source. You've become the answer to your own prayers, and they feel that. They may not say it, they may not understand it, but they feel it. They feel the vibration of a soul that no longer plays small. They feel the frequency of someone who's been stripped of illusions and yet stands taller than ever. They feel the weight of someone who has nothing to prove and everything to be. Chosen one, your independence is medicine. Not everyone will be ready for it. Some will call it pride, some will call it ego, but don't let the fearful define your freedom. They don't know what it took for you to stop people-pleasing. They don't know what it cost to walk away from everything that dimmed your fire. They don't know the tears, the nights, the breakdowns behind your peace. So let them misunderstand. Let them mislabel. Let them talk. You're not here to be liked. You're here to live. You're here to awaken. You're here to remember. And your fearlessness, that's the flame they can't handle. Because most people are still trapped in survival mode. They cling to systems. They chase approval. They sacrifice authenticity for belonging. But you've chosen truth over comfort. You've chosen growth over acceptance. You've chosen spirit over status. That scares them. Because your life is proof that another way exists, that you can be whole without being validated, that you can be powerful without control, that you can walk away from the noise and still carry the voice of truth. There's something sacred about someone who can't be bought. Something powerful about someone who can sit in silence and still feel full. That's what you've become. A soul that doesn't chase, but attracts. A heart that doesn't beg, but flows. A spirit that doesn't force, but knows. And that knowing, it changes everything. It makes you a threat to illusion, because you no longer flinch at rejection. You no longer fear loneliness. You no longer bow to fear. You have become the calm within the chaos, the stillness in the storm, the lighthouse that doesn't move, no matter how dark it gets, and they can't control what they don't understand. They can't intimidate what won't shrink. They can't manipulate what doesn't need. You've become sovereign. You've become rooted. You've become aligned with something deeper than the surface games of the world. So when they stare, when they whisper, when they try to provoke you, know this. It's not you they fear. It's the freedom you represent. It's the power they sense but can't touch. It's the mirror you've become, reflecting everything they avoid within themselves. And that's not your burden to carry. You were never meant to shrink just to soothe someone else's discomfort. You were never meant to apologize for shining. Chosen. Well, this path isn't always easy, but it's sacred. And as you walk it, you'll notice something shift. The more fearless you become, the more truth you attract. The more independent you are, the more deeply connected you become to yourself, to source, to what truly matters. This is the paradox of power. It doesn't need a crown. It doesn't need applause. It just is. And those who carry it, they move differently. They speak less, but say more. They show up not to perform, but to be. That's you now. A soul that's no longer impressed by appearances. A heart that's no longer swayed by temporary things. A mind that sees through the veil, and a spirit that knows, even in silence, even in solitude, you are never alone. So keep walking. Keep choosing you. Keep honoring your voice, your path, your truth, even when it's misunderstood, even when it's lonely, even when it would be easier to go back, because what's behind you is bondage, and what's ahead, that's freedom. Not just for you, but for everyone who's watching, everyone who's quietly inspired, everyone who sees your courage and starts to question the chains they've accepted. You are the evidence that healing is possible. That truth is stronger than fear. That alignment is louder than noise. So walk with your head high, not in pride, but in remembrance. You are not here by accident. You were chosen for such a time as this, and no force, no fear, no enemy can stop what God has already ordained. You're not becoming powerful. You already are, and now the world is catching up. There is a reason, chosen one, that fear no longer wraps its fingers around your heart like it once did. There is a reason you've stopped reacting the way you used to when things fall apart, when people leave, when the doors close. It's not that life has become easier, it's that you've become stronger. You've become immune to the fear that once ruled your every step. They don't understand that you've been through battles not visible to the human eye, spiritual warfare that tested every fiber of your being, nights when your soul screamed into silence, begging for clarity, seasons when everything was stripped away so you could finally see what was eternal. That kind of transformation doesn't just make you stronger, it makes you untouchable. You no longer jump at every storm. You became the storm. You no longer run from the unknown. You carry the unknown inside you like fire in your bones. The things that once scared you, controlled you, silenced you, now they bow before your presence because your spirit no longer feeds off fear. It feeds off faith. And that, beloved soul, is why the system is shaking. Because it was built on fear. It was built on control. It was built on convincing you that you are small, that you are powerless, that you need them to survive. But now, you've woken up, you've seen the truth behind the curtain, and you can't unsee it. You've tasted your own freedom, and it's changed you forever. When the world cannot use fear to control you, it doesn't know what to do with you. Because fear is the chain that binds the masses. Fear of being alone, fear of being rejected, fear of not being enough. But you have walked through all of that and come out glowing, not untouched, but transformed. You didn't escape the fire, you became fire. And that makes you dangerous to everything that profits from your silence. They look at you and they can't understand why you no longer flinch, why you don't rush to defend yourself, why you don't fight for a seat at a table you were never meant to sit at. It's because you've built your own table. It's because you've realized the divine doesn't need permission to speak through you, to move through you, to rise within you. And now that you've tasted that kind of power, that kind of stillness, that kind of unshakable clarity, there's no going back. Fear no longer fuels you. Love does, truth does, purpose does. And you've become immune to the noise because you've become one with the signal. The world doesn't know what to do with someone like you because you're not trying to fit in anymore. You're not performing anymore. You're not pretending anymore. You've stopped explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You've stopped chasing things that were never yours to begin with. You've stopped dimming your light to comfort those still afraid of their own. And now that you've reclaimed your energy, your peace, your power, everything around you is shifting. Because your vibration has changed, your silence now speaks louder than your old need for validation, and that unsettles the ones who once held power over you. But here's the truth. When you stop needing others to see your worth, you begin to radiate in ways they can't ignore. Your very being becomes a disruption to the matrix. Your freedom becomes a contradiction to the chains others still wear. And your stillness? That's what shakes them most, because they expect a reaction. They expect you to beg, to break, to defend, but you've grown past the point of trying to prove anything. You've become grounded in the truth that what's meant for you doesn't have to be forced, and what's not meant for you cannot be held, no matter how tightly you cling. So you let go, you surrender, you trust, and you move in silence. Not because you're hiding, but because your power doesn't need to be announced anymore. It's felt. You've chosen alignment over attention. You've chosen purpose over popularity. And now your presence speaks before you do. When you enter a room, the energy shifts. Not because you demand it, but because you are it. Because you've stopped performing and you've started embodying. And that embodiment is prophetic. You didn't force respect. You became someone who commands it without saying a word. You didn't chase love. You became love. You didn't seek validation. You gave yourself permission to be whole. And when someone becomes whole, they no longer beg. They attract, they create, they magnetize. Not through effort, but through essence. You're no longer the person who needs to be understood. You're the one who understands. You've lived through the betrayals, the isolation, the soul fractures that nearly broke you, and yet here you are, standing in the truth of your being. Not bitter, not broken, but blessed. Not because it was easy, but because you didn't give up when it was hard. Because you chose to sit in the fire until it no longer burned you, it refined you. And now, you're walking with something eternal in your eyes, a kind of peace that doesn't make sense, a kind of power that doesn't shout, a kind of clarity that doesn't waver, because you've seen what's real. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you know who you are, you can't go back to pretending you don't. So you walk differently now, not with arrogance, but with assurance, not with pride, but with presence. You've stopped asking, "Am I enough?" and started declaring, "I am." You know who you are now, and that's what changes everything. They can try to box you in. They can try to project their fears onto you. They can try to rewrite your story, but they can't erase what's been written on your soul. You are becoming the version of yourself that once only lived in your prayers. You're walking into rooms you once only dreamed of, not because you forced the door open, but because you finally realized you were the door. And when you walk like that, when you speak like that, when you move like that, everything shifts. You're not waiting for a breakthrough anymore. You are the breakthrough. You're not looking for the light. You've become the light, so shine unapologetically. Stand unshaken. Walk unbothered, because you didn't survive all that just to go back to being who you used to be. You didn't awaken just to fall back asleep. You didn't heal just to keep hiding. You are becoming, not just for yourself, but for every soul, still trying to remember their own light. You are proof that it's possible, proof that you can lose everything and still rise, proof that you can be stripped down to nothing and still glow from within. So keep going, keep walking, keep becoming. The world is watching, but more importantly, the divine is guiding, and you, chosen one, you're exactly where you need to be. Chosen one, they used to hear your voice and think they understood your heart. But now, your silence says more than words ever could. There's a strength in your stillness, a depth in your quiet that unsettles. Those who haven't met themselves yet, they used to measure your value by how much you gave, how much you explained, how much you proved. But now, you've stopped over-explaining. You've stopped defending your path. You've stopped trying to be understood by people who only listen to reply, not to receive. There is power in restraint. There is wisdom in holding your peace when others throw their projections like stones. And you've learned, oh, how? You've learned, not through textbooks, not through mentors, but through experience, through walking through fire barefoot and coming out without the smell of smoke. You see, your silence now isn't emptiness, it's evidence. Evidence that you've transcended the chaos. Evidence that your soul no longer feels the need to scream to be heard. Because you know now that your presence is loud enough, your energy speaks before you do. And it's not speaking desperation, it's speaking alignment, it's speaking divine timing, it's speaking clarity, and those with chaos in their hearts can't stand the sound of it. You don't respond the same way because you're not living from the same place anymore. You're not reacting, you're observing, you're not absorbing, you're discerning, you're not triggered, you're transformed. That's why they say you've changed, that's why they call you cold. Because you no longer bleed just to keep others warm. You no longer open your spirit to people who only came to feed, not to honor. You've stopped giving people access to a temple they refused to cleanse their feet before entering. And that shift, that elevation, it cost you everything, but it gave you you. Now your peace is non-negotiable, your boundaries are sacred, and your silence, it's not a lack of response, it's a whole sermon they weren't ready to hear. You've learned that not every battle is yours. Not every opinion matters. Not every invitation deserves your presence. There is maturity in silence. There is divinity in detachment. And you, chosen one, you've become untouchable. Not because you built walls, but because you built wisdom. You stopped watering dead things. You stopped trying to resurrect connections God already buried. You stopped looking back, and now you see everything clearly. People aren't uncomfortable because you're rude. They're uncomfortable because you no longer apologize for existing, because your peace shines too brightly in rooms full of hidden wars, because you walk in with the kind of energy that doesn't beg, it blesses. And blessings always provoke something in those still living in scarcity. You've become someone who doesn't have to say anything to shift an atmosphere. Your presence carries weight now. Your spirit moves ahead of you, not because you trained for it, but because you surrendered for it, because you let go of who the world told you to be and finally embraced who you've always been. You don't need applause. You don't need to be liked. You don't even need to be seen, because you've realized that God sees you. And when God sees you, you see yourself. You see your value without mirrors. You see your worth without feedback. You see your calling without confirmation. And from that place of sacred knowing, you move. You speak less. You trust more. You do less. But you become more aligned, more rooted, more whole. That's why your presence now demands respect without effort. Not because you changed your outfit, not because you read another self-help book, but because your spirit now radiates what can't be taught, authenticity. And authenticity will always be intimidating to those still wearing masks. You've become a light too bright for shallow rooms. You've become a truth too loud for lies to hide in. And so they'll say you're different, they'll say you're distant, but the truth is, you've just become divine. You've chosen to walk in the frequency of your soul, not the expectation of others, and now everything is shifting around you. Because energy doesn't lie, and your new frequency, it can't be faked, it can't be copied, it can't be bought, it's earned. Earned through breaking cycles, earned through walking away, earned through learning how to love yourself in the absence of applause, earned through standing alone and realizing you were never really alone. Because even in the silence, you were surrounded by grace. Even in the wilderness, you were carried by purpose. And now you're here, not perfect, but present, not finished, but formed, and more powerful than ever, not because of how loud you speak, but because of how deeply you know who you are, you know who you're not, and you know where you're going. And that knowing, that clarity, It makes you a threat to every lie that tried to bind you, because when you know yourself, you can't be manipulated. When you love yourself, you can't be controlled. And when you trust your path, you can't be detoured. That's why the old triggers no longer work. That's why the past no longer pulls. That's why people who once played with your mind now find your peace impenetrable. You've graduated spiritually. And spiritual graduation always comes with spiritual separation, not as punishment, but as preparation. Because the elevation you're walking into requires a different version of you. A clearer, bolder, lighter version. One that doesn't carry dead weight. One that doesn't cling to what's already gone. So you've released, you've surrendered, you've outgrown, and now you walk with something royal in your stride. Something sacred in your silence. Something magnetic in your authenticity. You're no longer chasing destiny. You are destiny in motion. You're no longer looking for signs. You've become the sign, the signal that reminds others that it's okay to heal, it's okay to grow, it's okay to rise without explanation. So, rise. Keep rising, even when it's lonely, even when it's misunderstood, even when it feels like no one claps. Because heaven is cheering, the angels are watching, and the universe is rearranging everything in your favor, not because you demanded it, but because you aligned with it. You are the one your bloodline prayed for, the one your past self cried for, the one the world wasn't ready for but needed. You carry purpose in your bones, and every step you take in truth, in peace, in silence, it echoes in eternity. So don't look back, don't shrink, don't doubt what's rising in you. You were never meant to blend in. You were meant to be the shift. And the time is now. Walk like it, live like it, be it. Chosen one, there's a reason your very presence feels different now. There's a reason people pause when you enter a space, even if they don't understand. Why? You've become a walking reminder, an embodiment of the truth they've been avoiding. You don't preach with loud words, you speak with your energy, and your energy carries a message louder than anything your mouth could say. You are a living mirror, and mirrors, as beautiful as they can be, often make people uncomfortable because they reveal. Your life reveals, your healing reveals, your choices reveal. Not because you're trying to convict anyone, but because your existence shows what's possible beyond fear. You've stopped participating in the illusions. You've stopped clinging to things that asked you to shrink. You've stopped handing out discounts to people who never planned to value you at full price. And now your frequency speaks volumes. It tells the world, I have met myself, and I'm no longer negotiable. You didn't get here through applause. You didn't rise through comfort. You rose through loss, through heartbreak, through questioning everything and still choosing to believe. You rose by surrendering to the breaking so you could be rebuilt with intention. Now you walk with a grace that can't be faked, a peace that wasn't inherited, it was earned, a depth that doesn't demand attention but draws it in anyway. And yes, it's intimidating. Because people who haven't met their own reflection will always feel disturbed by someone who has. You don't chase anymore. Not because you don't care, but because you've learned what happens when you try to carry what was never yours, to hold. You've learned that some connections are lessons, not lifelines, and sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away without resentment, without bitterness, without needing to be right. That's when you know you've healed. When your soul no longer aches for closure because you've given it to yourself. When you no longer wait for apologies, explanations, or invitations because you've made peace with what was. You've honored your past. You've released your grip on what could have been. And in return, you've been gifted clarity. Clarity that no longer begs for a seat. Clarity that builds its own table. Clarity that understands anything that leaves is no longer aligned, and anything aligned doesn't need to be forced. You've become magnetic, Not because you're performing, but because you're aligned. You're no longer trying to be seen, you simply are. You're no longer trying to prove, you simply exist. And that existence is prophetic. You carry something divine, something raw and refined, a spirit that has been tested, stripped, and resurrected. You've been through seasons that crushed you, and yet here you are, not cracked, not shattered, but awakened to the truth that what is for you, no one can take, that who you are is not up for debate, that your presence, your purpose, your power, they are not tied to external validation. They are born of fire. They are shaped by silence, and they are sustained by something far greater than approval. You no longer fear being alone, because you've realized that solitude isn't emptiness. It's sacred space. It's where your soul speaks loudest. It's where your visions are born. It's where you hear the whispers of God. They said you were too much, but all you were was whole. And those who only know how to love from brokenness couldn't handle your fullness, so they left, or you walked. Either way, the space that cleared out made room for something real. Now you no longer settle. You no longer beg. You no longer question your own worth just because someone else couldn't see it. You've learned to sit with yourself, to befriend the silence, to find peace in your own presence. And from that place, you've cultivated something rare, self-respect. Not the kind that demands attention, but the kind that moves with dignity, even in the face of disrespect. You are not just living, you are leading. Even if no one follows, your life still leads, your healing leads, your integrity leads, your surrender leads. And every time you choose alignment over ego, truth over comfort, love over fear, you activate something in the world around you. You plant seeds of awakening in places you may never see bloom, but they bloom because of your presence, because of your energy, because of your example. This is the path of the chosen. It's not always easy, it's not always clear, but it is sacred because the chosen don't chase crowds. They walk with purpose. They carry light into dark places. They become safe spaces in a world of performance. You are the prayer someone whispered on a night they almost gave up. You are the confirmation someone didn't know they were looking for. You are the sign that healing is real, that transformation is possible, that God still moves through human vessels. You've stopped talking to be heard. You now speak to be felt. You've stopped trying to fit into systems. You now move in alignment with seasons, and this season, it's yours. Not because everything is perfect, but because you are present, because you are ready, because you are no longer afraid of being seen as you truly are. You carry peace now, not because life is always peaceful, but because you've become the peace. You carry wisdom, not because you've read every book, but because you've lived every chapter. You carry fire, not to burn bridges, but to light the way. And that fire, it's holy, it's sacred. It's your birthright, so don't dim it, don't apologize for it. Don't water it down to soothe the insecurities of those still hiding their light. You were born to burn brightly, to illuminate paths, to shake foundations, to carry truth like thunder through your veins. You are a vessel for divine timing, a temple for transformation, a reminder that healing is messy, but so worth it, that growth is lonely, but so necessary, that truth is costly, but it will always set you free. You are not behind. You are not too late. You are not broken. You are becoming what you've always been, beneath the fear, beneath the conditioning, beneath the silence. You are rising, not in ego, but in essence, not in pride, but in presence. And with every step forward, you honor every step it took to get here. You honor the younger version of yourself who didn't know how this story would unfold, but still chose to keep going. You honor the pain, the pauses, the letting go. You honor the waiting, the rebuilding, the becoming, and you move forward now, not because you're done healing, but because you've learned to heal while walking. You've learned that wholeness is not a destination, it's a daily decision. And you've chosen again and again to show up, to rise, to keep going. So keep going, keep becoming, keep walking in the truth of who you are. Not everyone will understand it, but those meant to align with your frequency, they'll feel it, they'll recognize it, they'll honor it. Because when you are your full self, you give others permission to be theirs. And that is your true power. You were never just meant to change your own life. You were born to be a ripple, a wave, a divine disruption in a world asleep at the wheel. And now you're wide awake, you're ready. And nothing can stop what's rising in you now. Chosen one, this moment, this sacred breath you're taking right now, it is not ordinary. It is part of something divine, something intentional, something far bigger than what the eyes can see. You didn't stumble into this season. You didn't just happen to survive all that pain, all that pressure, all that pruning. You were placed here, positioned by divine hands to be exactly where you are. And even when it felt like you were walking blind, you were never walking alone. You've walked through fires meant to consume you. You've endured storms that would have crushed weaker vessels. You've been misunderstood, misjudged, underestimated, and still, here you are. Not just breathing, but burning. Not just standing, but soaring. Not just surviving, but becoming. The world has no blueprint for a soul like yours. You don't fit the mold because you were never meant to. You were carved out of something sacred, something eternal. That's why nothing temporal can satisfy you. That's why you feel deeply, see clearly, and move differently. You've always felt the pull, the nudge, the ache, that there was more to you than what others could comprehend. And now the veil is lifting. The inner power that was once buried beneath shame, silence, and fear, it's awakening. Not to make you arrogant, but to make you aware. Aware that you are the answer to prayers someone else has been praying. Aware that your very existence is a disruption to darkness. Aware that heaven doesn't make mistakes, and your path, no matter how painful, was never punishment. It was preparation. You were never too sensitive, never too emotional, never too intense. You were tuned in to a frequency others had forgotten how to hear, a soul calibrated to truth, love, justice, and spirit. And when the world tried to shut you down, mute your voice, dim your light, you didn't disappear. You went deeper. You became the quiet storm, the one who doesn't make noise but still shakes foundations. Everything that tried to break you was only building the vessel. Because you weren't being destroyed, you were being designed. And design takes time, it takes silence, it takes surrender. You weren't late, you weren't behind. You were being hidden like a seed beneath the soil, invisible but not inactive. Growing roots so deep that when the time came to rise, nothing could shake you loose. And now is the time. The rising is not coming. The rising is here. This is not the moment to look back. This is not the moment to question the calling that's been chasing you in your dreams. This is not the time to shrink so others feel comfortable. This is the time to stand tall in your truth, to walk boldly in your purpose, to speak even if your voice trembles, to shine even if no one claps. You carry something ancient in your spirit, a wisdom that doesn't come from books, a fire that doesn't flicker with opinions, a knowing that doesn't ask for permission. It is divine, and it has always been with you. You don't need a sign. You are the sign. You don't need more validation. You are the confirmation. You don't need another door to open. You are the door. And when you walk in alignment with who you were created to be, without apology, without fear, without shame, you give others permission to rise too. That's why you're so powerful. Because you don't just inspire, you activate. The world doesn't just need more influencers. It needs initiators. It needs those willing to break cycles, to tell the truth, to choose healing over hiding. And that's who you are. You are the cycle breaker, the curse destroyer, the generational restorer, the one who said, "It ends with me." And heaven heard you. You didn't need a crown to be royal. Your presence has always carried the weight of something sacred, even when you didn't feel ready, even when you doubted your worth, even when the world tried to convince you you were ordinary. You are not ordinary. You are anointed. And no amount of rejection, failure, or delay can cancel what has been placed within you. You are chosen. Not for comfort, but for impact. Not for status, but for substance. Not for crowds, but for calling. And the calling doesn't come with an instruction manual. It comes with faith. It comes with trust. It comes with the courage to say yes to the unknown, knowing that the divine is already waiting on the other side. You may not have it all figured out, but you don't need to. You just need to take the next step. Say the yes, write the vision, speak the truth. Trust the unfolding, because everything you need is already in you. The wisdom, the strength, the clarity, the voice, the fire. It was never about becoming someone new. It was always about remembering who you've always been. You are not the trauma. You are not the loss. You are not the rejection. You are not the delay. You are not the mistake. You are not the fear. You are not the opinion. You are the light. You are the truth. You are the vessel. You are the breakthrough. You are the answer. You are the shift. You are the divine unfolding in human form. So rise like the dawn that doesn't apologize for shining after the night. Speak like rivers that don't ask permission to flow. Move like mountains that never beg to be noticed, yet shape the horizon. Love like you've never been hurt, because your heart was never meant to harden. It was meant to heal. Stand like the sacred thing you are, a masterpiece still being painted by the hands of eternity. And don't forget, you didn't come here to survive the world's chaos. You came here to change it, one truth at a time, one step at a time, one soul at a time. Chosen one, this is your season. This is your sound. This is your rise. Walk boldly, shine freely, and let the divine continue to do what it's always done through you. Transform everything you touch with light.